folks, Will here again with Happily Ever Outdoors. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the Stanford Outdoor Supply Water B.O.S. kit. B.O.S. stands for Bug Out Survival Supplement. So the idea behind this line of kits is that you've got one kit to meet one specific need in a survival situation, such as water, you see here, fire, shelter, and so on. So you can get these kits, you can either break them down, add them to your existing bug out bag, or you could keep them pre-packaged. They come in a sealed, waterproof bag. You see here it's kind of a metal foil, plastic covered pouch, so completely waterproof. You could just add those to your kit, maybe at home, maybe you have a big tub of survival gear in case you ever had an emergency, you had to evacuate the house with you and your family. Now these kits have been pretty great so far in my experience. There's a lot of redundancy in them, which means they give you more than one way to accomplish a task. So like in their fire kit, you've got 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe different ways that you can start a fire. So you've got a lot of fail-safes in case something were to go wrong, or if you have something special about your situation to where one might not work, the other one would work for you. So very smart, very well thought out. So maybe if you're just getting started into survival, or there's an area that you're not super familiar, or maybe you're like an instructor, or you work with Boy Scouts, or you know somebody's into Scouts, something like that, these kits are really, really great in that respect as well. There's a lot you can learn from the stuff inside this kit. Now you can get all these kits on StanfordOutdoorSupply.com. The price does vary depending on the kit. This particular kit here goes for $29.99. Now this is going to be a 30-piece water gathering kit. You can see all of the contents are clearly listed on the outside of the pouch, which is great if you're storing these things. If you pull them out, you're going to know exactly what's inside at a glance. So it was raining really heavily this morning. It's actually just misting a little bit right now. It's still real warm out because we're in the month of August here. But we're going to go ahead and lay this kit out and check out the contents so you can see everything that you get inside this pouch. Alright guys, let's go through this real quick before it decides to start pouring on us. We're going down the list here. First, we have what they refer to as a survival filter straw. This particular one that comes in the pack, at least for right now, is the Aquamira Frontier straw. Hold that up so you guys can take a look. Now if you're not familiar with this type of filter, this is simply a straw that you're just going to drink out of. This one comes with a piece of tubing that you can attach to it to make it a little bit easier, but it's just a filter inside of a plastic straw, and so you're going to suck your water through that and it's going to automatically filter it for you. I'll hold the back up so you guys can pause that and read through that if you want to. An important thing to remember with filters like this is a great thing for on the go. If you do not have a lot of time to procure water or to purify, sanitize, filter it, do all that good stuff, it's a great way to go. Although they do have their limitations and they're different depending on the filter. So keep in mind what type of environment you're in, whether it's a jungle environment or somewhere with a lot of animals where you got to worry about that kind of contamination, or heavy metals, agricultural chemical runoff, things like that. Not all filters will take care of that, so always keep that in mind. But this is something that's awesome to have if you're on the go, just for a single person. Even if you have to go ahead and gather water quickly, like out of a stream or a river or a pond or something like that, into a bag or some other container, and then you could just drink it out of that container through the straw and you'll be good to go. So a real smart thing to start with. This is definitely super convenient, and again, perfect if you have to keep moving. Next, we have 3 1-liter stand-up bags. They come packed up nice and tight like this. I'll go ahead and pull these apart just so you guys can see one of these. Right. Now this is something that may be more familiar if you're like in a medical industry, something like that, because that's really kind of what these are originally intended for. But you can see what's nice about that is because they are designed for like medical type use, they're completely sealed. You can see there's a tear off on the top right there, and then at the base that's actually going to open up. So what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to basically it's going to allow this bag to stand up. Once you start filling up with water, it's got weight inside of it. that bottom's going to flare out and it's going to stand up on its own. And we should be able to demonstrate that for you guys in a little bit here. Next up, we do have two 24 by 30 inch plastic bags. This is clear white plastic here. Feels fairly heavy duty. Some of the values that I see in this would be, number one, you could use it for shelter, and in turn, while you're using it as a shelter, you could use that to collect water runoff from the rain. That's an obvious use for it. You could also use it for gathering water, moving it from a stream, maybe back to your campsite. A lot of good uses for that. Great to have some material like that in there. We've also got 6 water purification tablets. These ones currently that come in here are from Aquamira, well-known brand. This stuff definitely works. Now, one minor flaw I see at this point, because you don't get the outer packaging here, you don't actually get directions here on how many tablets to use, you know, in relation to the amount of water. It's not printed on there anywhere. Now, I assume these kits normally come with a survival information sheet with it, but this model that I have right here is actually kind of the first prototype that came out before this was actually being sold on their website. Unfortunately, sorry guys, I'm a little behind the power curve. I haven't been able to get this review knocked out for you, but if you do order this kit now off of StanfordOutdoorSupply.com, you will get the survival information sheet with it, and I'd be willing to bet that they probably address the proper use of these tablets on that sheet. So there we have that. We also get 6 coffee filters included in that kit, and that might seem a little strange, but it actually makes a lot of sense when you think of it from water filtration standpoint. So what you'll be able to do, and this is a great style of filter to include in this kit, by the way, because it's a cone style filter. You're just going to open that up, and you can hold that over your container if you do have a water bottle, or you can use one of the bags or the dish that's included in this kit, and you'll be able to pour water through that, and that's going to do a pretty decent job of filtering it. Now, that's not going to take out you know, viruses or bacteria, anything like that, but if you've got water that's really heavily filled with you know, sediment, stuff like that, really murky, muddy, got algae, stuff like that in there, it's going to filter a lot of that out, which is first off going to make it a lot more pleasant to drink, and then it's going to make it a lot easier for you to go ahead and actually purify that to make it safe to drink after the fact. So filtration, purification, 2 different things. Got to keep that in mind. But that's definitely a great idea to include these in here. They feel fairly heavy duty, so depending on how dirty the water is that you're working with, you'll probably be able to get a few uses out of this before you have to switch to a new one. Alright, we also have a 10 milliliter syringe included in this kit. Now that might seem a little bit strange to some folks why you would put that in there, but the primary purpose, the primary thinking here is to go with this surgical tubing that you see here. And we do get a pretty good length. I think this says it's 5 feet. It's probably about right. And in a situation, let's say you were in a more arid environment and you found water down inside of a crack or somewhere maybe that you couldn't reach. We're talking very small amounts when you're really struggling for water. You could take this syringe and you can hook it up to that tubing, and you can use that to draw that water. So you can kind of use that potentially to really kind of prime that hose, and then you could even use it, you know, just with your lips to suck the water through there if it was in a real tight spot. So very smart to have. You know, stuff like this filter here is great, using the coffee filters and all that, but that only works if you've got a, you know, good volume of water to work with. Something like this, if you're in a really, really dire straits, could definitely help you out. We've also got a compressed sponge included in this kit. It almost looks like a wafer or something when you see it right here, totally dry. But we will show you guys a little bit here what that looks like when you actually get it wet. But what that's going to be good for is, let's say you're in a situation where maybe you have like a very small puddle of water, some water that's, you know, settled on top of a large rock, something like that, you can use that sponge to kind of gently soak that up, and then you could squeeze that into this dish that's included here, or if you had another container. Also, it would be good potentially if you were collecting like dew or rainwater that's on large leaves, or maybe if it was like a puddle where there's a lot of sediment in the bottom, you could take that and kind of gently rest that on the surface and then use that to move water. So another smart thing to have. We've got a metal bowl included, as I touched on earlier. Not super big, so you're not going to really be able to use this for large quantities of water, but for smaller quantities this could be really great. Again, for water gathering, you could use it for scooping water out of a stream or something like that to dump into those plastic bags over here, or potentially, if it came down to it, you could probably boil a small amount of water in this if you didn't have any other way of purifying. So good to have. So here is another great method to have in case some of the so this is another great option to have in case a lot of the other methods fail for you. Everything here you see has limitations. You might think that this Frontier straw right here is going to cover you on anything, but you can imagine if this filter were to get clogged, because especially if you're drinking water that's full of a lot of sediment, this filter could clog right here and then it would be no good. Or if you were in a winter situation, water will stay inside this filter and it could freeze and it could burst. And if that's the only way you have of filtering water and you don't have any other methods, you don't understand how to use these other methods, you would be out of luck. The only option you would have is to drink potentially contaminated water, which could lead to you being sick, vomiting, diarrhea, things like that, which would lead to severe dehydration and could end up costing you your life. So redundancy, as I mentioned earlier, is a great way to go to ensure that you're covered in a survival situation. Okay, so we also have 2 foil sheets included, and this is nothing fancy whatsoever. This is basically aluminum foil is all it is. And you might be thinking, what are you going to use that for water purification? Well, really the most basic thing right here is that this is a great mat if you're trying to start a fire, which fire is one of the really simplest, easiest way to make water safe to drink in a lot of situations as far as bacteria, viruses, things are concerned. You can boil water, you can drink it. Even if there's some dirt and gunk in there, a lot of times you'll still be okay. So this is going to really help you out if you're in a situation where it's real wet outside, you don't have good ground to start a fire on. You lay that foil down, it's going to help reflect the heat, it's going to keep your tinder bundle or whatever you got going dry until you can get a fire started. So smart to have in here. Lastly, we have 3 compressed towels. You might have seen these before. They make compressed towels like for kids that are a little bit bigger than this, where it's really compacted down, looks almost like a pill. Again, we'll show you what that looks like once you get it kind of reconstituted, if that's the right word, in a little bit here. But this is another thing, good to have, a couple different uses. Again, you could use it similar to the sponge for collecting rainwater. You can squeeze it out, use it that way. You could also use a small hand towel for like a filter if you needed to take out heavy sediment and pour water through it. So lastly, as I mentioned, normally you would have the survival instruction sheet included, which in my experience in the other kits has been pretty good. It comes on a piece of paper that's meant to be waterproof so it won't get messed up, and it kind of explains any of the little details in the kit that you might need to know, as well as gives you some basic survival tips related to this particular element of survival. So great for beginners, also great if you're using this kit as a teaching tool or as a gift for somebody else. Unfortunately, I do not have the sheet for this kit, so I cannot comment on that one specifically. So overall, I think this is a pretty well-rounded kit. You've definitely got all of your bases covered as far as water collection and purification is concerned. So I'm pretty happy with this kit overall. I think at the price point, it's a really good setup. So as promised, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate a few of the elements of this kit for you guys. So as you guys can see, this method obviously is not going to get this water perfectly clear, but it is going to filter out all of the heavier particulates. So you can see you don't see any dirt or anything floating around there. This water, you're definitely going to still want to either boil it or use like those water purification tablets to purify it, but it's going to be a lot more pleasant to drink, even if the taste is a little bit off to what you're probably used to drinking from a bottle or at the house. And as you guys can see, these bags do a pretty good job of standing up on their own, so that's going to make it a lot easier when you're trying to purify some water. You're not going to have to worry about it dumping over on you. What's great about these bags is the design of the top too, because you can fold it over like 3 times. You've got these metal reinforced tab right there you can fold over, and you can see right there holds water in. So if you had to put this in your bag or carry it a long distance, you wouldn't have to worry about it dumping out. Very, very cool. There's that sponge we were talking about. And you guys can see how fast that was. Fairly sturdy, not super big or super thick, but definitely big enough to be useful. Again, you probably wouldn't use it for something like this where you've got, you know, a large volume of water, but you can get the idea. If you were gathering water off of puddles on a rock, maybe off of large foliage, something like that, should be a pretty useful way to collect water. And then of course you can go ahead and filter and purify it after that part's done. Now let's check out one of these compressed towels. I think I'll just do this in the dish so you guys can see a little better. Okay. So you can see this is nothing super heavy duty. It's almost like a gauze type material, almost like a medical gauze. But you could see right there where, again, you could potentially use this to sop up water into a container. This, I would think, would also work especially well if it was the type of thing where you're trying to gather condensation, you know, morning dew, condensation on leaves, stuff like that. It would definitely be useful for that. And again, if you were out of those coffee filters, you could put this over the top of your container and you could pour water through that, and it would also help to strain a lot of the large particulates off. So I hope that was helpful to give you guys a little bit of an idea of what you can accomplish with this kit. I also wanted to let you see that there really are no gimmicky elements to this, in my opinion. Even the sponge and the towels, the water bags, everything works exactly like it's supposed to, especially those water bags. I think those are really, really awesome. That's going to make it a lot easier for you gathering water out there. Now, understanding how to secure and to purify safe drinking water is an essential part of survival, but I think oftentimes it really doesn't get enough attention. It's not as glamorous as knives and machetes or fire making or shelter building. People don't really spend enough time thinking about water, but the reality is you can survive a pretty long time without food, but you cannot survive very long without water. Depending on the environment you're in, your level of physical activity, a lot of different factors, you may not have more than a few days at best without water before it takes you down. That's really, really serious. So you need to make sure you have gear in your survival kit to secure water and to purify it, to make it safe to drink. Otherwise, your survival kit is useless. All those fancy gadgets and gear and knives and fire making stuff, all that, it's not going to matter if you can't put hydration into your body. So whether you decide that this particular kit is for you or not, make sure you have what you need to get water. Alright folks, this concludes our review of the Stanford Outdoor Supply Water B.O.S. Feel free to leave your comments and questions below, and make sure you subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.